welcome to the program Leadership Perspective. I'm your host Manik Senanayake, and as always we'll be discussing about leadership, how the current trends, how the role has evolved, with the current competencies on capabilities matches the marketplace demands. And today we are going to look at exclusive from an industry captain or a CEO or business leader part of it. And to discuss that, we have a very eminent personality. He's been called a visionary, a great business leadership icon, a truly global Sri Lankan, a strategist. But I would say more than anything else, he's a great human being. And also I would say that he's a true agent of transformation in our times. He is known by the first name, not around just among the business fraternity, but also around every single Sri Lankan. He is simply Dion Gomes. Thank you very much for coming on this program.
Thank you.
Just to give a heads up in terms of his credentials, he currently serves as the consulate for Georgia in Sri Lanka, and formerly he was the chairman of Hela Clothing, and also we all know that he provided leadership as group director for Mass Holding, having transformed just a 100 million business to a 2 billion during his tenure. And also he is a fellow of CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accounts, and also held as a past president of CIMA board as well. And also received his executive education, some of the world's renowned establishments such as Harvard, Ashbridge, and Wharton. He is also the past president of Boxing Council of Sri Lanka, and also NOC, which is National Olympic Committee, and also FENSI. And currently he is on board of several both corporate as well as government institutions. So Dana, before we start, I want to just understand a little bit your journey very briefly, because I think most of us are well aware of your legacy. Some will, looking at your leadership skills and leadership mantra, some will view you as a very participative, engaging, as well as probably a situational or contextual driven leader. But for me, having gone through all what you have achieved, to me what stands out most is that you are, as a leader, well grounded. That's the differentiate. There's, you always, the reality is just within 2 steps away from you, right? I want to understand your interventions growing up at Royal College, having different diverse students from different backgrounds, and also your journey, your 15-year stint away from Colombo at Pannal, and also having a great mentor. How all of that kind of shaped you, given those right DNAs to be such a great inspirational leader?
I think being at Royal was a great foundation because it had different people. Our friends were from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups. There were Muslims, there were Tamils, there were Sinhalese, Buddhists, Christians. So we were all together in one institution called Royal College, which had a long history of traditions.
Right.
And my involvement in boxing especially gave me the real battle experience even when I was much younger.
Right.
Getting into the boxing ring. I was a little bit radical at that time. I was a little bit of anti-establishment guy.
Not the best student.
Not the best student. Although I got the advanced level prize in grade 12, I think I was hardly in school. I was more out of school than.
Was mischievous.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was running riot. So I was not even allowed to sit for the boxing photograph in my final year because I had a mustache. So, all these experiences got me very grounded managing people and even being the cornerman in some of for the Royal boxers.
Right.
So, and going to Pannala again, it was not something new. It was a little different away from home. But of course, I could easily have a plain cup of tea with any of my workers. And we had about 12 British expats at that time when we started Slimline. So all those experiences got me very grounded.
It naturally came, is it?
It naturally came because the foundation was very, very strong. My beginnings at Royal College.
Right, excellent. I think another aspects of being a great leader is to basically build a culture. Now, building a culture takes time.
Yes.
It requires quite a lot of effort and sustainability as well. And you have done that. You have transformed just the apparel to a global brand. You have created a reposition, not only at the macro level, but at a very granular level. For example, machine operators. You changed the concept of jockey machine operators, gave them dignity back, right? And also make them feel they are part of a cause that they feel that they want to do their best. And you create that amazing brand. It took time, but you delivered on that. My question to you, Anne, is that having do that, an area like Pannar, which was very rural, you also got the best talent from Colombo, from the elite schools, speaking English, going to the top tier schools. That is a huge challenge. How do you really integrate the two different segments in a one entity, and then create that kind of forward momentum to achieve your organizational objective? Because that's a huge challenge.
I think that was my biggest challenge when I moved into Pandala. We had a rural workforce coming from a very leftist area, Pandala, bringing people from the best business schools and young graduates from Colombo. I had 12 expatriates who were very technical from England. So bringing all of them together. But I managed to convince them that if you don't work as a team, that you will not succeed.
Right.
Our existence, our security, our job security, and the well-being to take this organization needed a lot of teamwork.
Right.
And I used a lot of tactics initially. It's trial and error.
Right.
Finding heroes of our time, who is going to be our role model, etc. Coming from my Harvard background in the 90s, and putting it into a local context. What I learned at Harvard, I had to put it into a local context to make it relevant and to drive the organization. Right. We used to send them on something like the outward bound training to the jungle for a few days.
Right.
The management, the unionists,
all
mixed together.
Right.
We used to share the same tent, the same clothes, and to drive the organization.
Right.
And over a period of time, Sri Lankans are very, very competitive. We took part in all the competitions like the National Productivity Award, National Safety Award, the Akimoto Award, put them into a very competitive organization. People like to win. And if you win and you keep on winning, it becomes part of your DNA. Right. Then the team comes together. Right. So you created a culture. That is why I used to recruit a lot of sportsmen.
Right.
I had, when I left MAS nearly 5 years or 7 years ago, we had 141 national athletes in 21 sports, and majority of them were based in Pandala.
Wow.
The national boxing team, part of the rugby team, part of the national cricket team. So it was a very sporting culture.
Right.
So we created a conducive environment on respect, and competition and equality. We used to all sit together and have lunch together in the canteen. I used to have my plain cup of tea with my workers. So it created a very different kind of organization, very radical organization, very competitive organization. And one of the greatest successes, I would say, is to recruit people who are better than me. Today all my prodigies, and they are all directors of MAS Holdings, and they were given that battle training, but they were always smart. I think they were smarter than me, and they followed me to the best business schools as well. So created a great culture there, which was the success of I would say MS Holdings.
Right, excellent, excellent. Truly inspirational. Blending the two cultures segments together, and it's all got to do with the leadership, how we cascade it down. Another two elements that I want to that is linked to leadership is very relevant to today's leadership is being inspirational and the competitive mindset. Now, basically, I don't know whether inspiration is something which you need to acquire or whether it is part of your DNA. But you have taken firm belief right throughout your career that there is space for graceful unification of sports and business.
Yes.
There is, resilience, able to get a punch and stand up. Understand defeat. So there is a lot of parallels when it comes to really integrating sportsmen into organizational format. I want for you to go back in time, specifically to 11th of October 2010. This is at the 2010 Delhi Games, Commonwealth. We have Manju Vanyarchi. You're the corner man. He has just finished the first two bouts. He's just going into the third round. He's 1 point behind, 5-6 against the Welshman.
Yes.
Now he comes to the corner.
Yes.
You as the corner man, you have just 1 minute.
Yes.
You had to get him guard out, wash him, and you have another 30 seconds just to give him strategy as well as inspire. Now, this is an extreme case of inspiration because it's time-led.
Yes.
First of all, what did you say? How did you do it?
I always believe that people can do it. Sri Lankans are very resilient, and you have to get into the boxer's head to do it. And you have virtually 30 seconds after you give him a little bit of water, wipe his blood, wash the spit from the gum shield and put it back. And in that critical fight, 30 seconds before the fight ended, it was all equal.
Right.
And because the scoring was, at that time, the corner could see the scoring, it was 7-all.
Right.
And you had 30 seconds, his gum shield fell out. So I had to wash the gum shield and I had to put it back. And I told him 30 seconds, and I showed him with my finger as well, 1, right? He knew that he had to score only 1.1 blow, and he actually gave that blow, which was a very direct, in the final round, that it was a direct blow which hit the Welshman. But unfortunately, 2 judges only saw it, the 3 judges missed it. So actually, he would have won that fight 8-7, but it was 7-all when it finished. And of course, the decision went for him to win the gold medal.
Right.
But any moment of, in my corner, having gone for the Olympics, about 5 world championships, 5 Commonwealth Games, 4 and thousands of Sri Lankan fights, I've been Sri Lanka's corner man. It is how you motivate him, and the motivation comes to each individual very differently. First thing is you take off the fear before the fight. That is the most important thing which I need to do. And at that moment of fight, that you need to be in his mind. And you realized his psyche, and I must understand my limitations and the role that I need to play. Most of the time I had to play more a father's role and think it's my son who's fighting. It's not about winning, his safety, his mental agility, how there are times that, you have to, say for Anuruddha Ratnayaka, I call him son, Puta, and for Anusha, sometimes I would call her by the name Anusha, very firm voice. So your tone, the way you get into the mind to fight, that's a very, very difficult call, even for me, because you are doing it under pressure.
Right. And the significance of the moment, after 72 years, you are trying to get a medal. Everything is.
Yes. And then it took me another kind of, another 11 years or another 8 years at the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane to win the 3 medals after 60 odd years. But all these people, they come from different backgrounds, and you need to understand, you need to motivate, and you need to it's a very fluid role that I have to play.
Right.
Each one is different. Each individual is different.
It's customized to the
Yes.
to the participant.
And the most difficult thing is the whole world is watching, and you lose a medal. People think you failed, and especially the boxer failed, and how you come out of it.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that at that moment that you need to kind of concentrate and attack
Right.
to win.
As leaders, we are constantly looking for external inspiration and knowledge to gain expand our leadership, our literacy. And so you have been to executive leadership programs, some of the world renowned ones. Besides that, we find that we have constantly looking for role models to influence our life. And you have been, I would say in your own terms, radical in school, and then probably not radical sense in organization, but you are not afraid to take risk. You have actually challenged the established norms, and it had worked well for you. So obviously that would have got you to a lot of hot water, lot of barriers and challenges.
Yes.
I want to ask you, just tell me from your beret, everything, but
Yes.
Shagura had an influence on his way of, not radical, but take charge, take risk, calculate risk or otherwise. So I think you are the two influences of Shagura and Muhammad Ali probably would have shaped your kind of that, the impetus to take on new challenges. Is
Yeah.
that something which
I think when I was much younger, I was more, I would say, a socialist or more to the left. And I think I still remain a socialist. And, in one of my biographies, one of my colleagues writes saying, people think Dion is a communist, but he's a socialist at heart, living a capitalist lifestyle. I think she's kind of described me very well, one of my co-directors. And looking back, they kind of influenced me. I used some of the tactics. I think I was always anti-establishment, even today, up to now. And, at Royal, having a mustache and long hair, and today I'm pretty bald. And from that to cutting school and my earlier KPMG days, jumping out during office hours, etc. But the influence that they gave me was something, very relevant at any part of the time. It's about leading people and understanding people, because you can have all the qualifications, all the right background, but if you cannot relate to people and to connect with them, you will never be able to be a leader.
Right.
Now, I had the biggest strength of, one of the things that I did even at Pandala or even across all my plants, we had this unofficial union, which is called the Joint Consultative Committee. And I used to, it's virtually a group of individuals representative of the organization at different departments, different levels of the strata. And we had at Slimline, about 60 people. So I would handle that meeting, which is virtually the union meeting,
Right.
all by myself, without my HR, without any of the senior management, one-on-one, where they could take me to task. They would say what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. But I've realized I had absolute power, and they always believed that I was their corner man. That was the most important. They had absolute trust. And on my 40th birthday,
that's my next question to you as well.
on my 40th birthday, one of the union leaders tells first, he's our older brother,
He's our friend.
He's our friend
And he's a caretaker
and defender of our rights,
Rights.
and the chief executive. So I've realized I've always been their corner man. And in my 26 years managing huge plants of 60,000, 100,000 people anywhere in the world, there wasn't a single industrial dispute, because I was the frontline man. People used to say working for Dion was like very, very demanding, but nobody ever threw the towel, working with me, because I was in their corner, anytime that they needed. So it was a very different style of management. I don't think a lot of shareholders appreciated what I was trying to do, but it was a great success. and people couldn't really identify business and sports, because shareholders are only interested in the margin and the profits. But I've realized the margins and profits come from people, and if you crack the people equation well, automatically
It's
it
good
works.
to be idealistic, but you have to be prepared to be misunderstood as well.
Yes,
That's
and I was not scared of that.
okay.
I was never scared of that. Even people, especially in the elite corporates, would think he was too radical. His style would threaten the establishment, that people would lose their power base, and because these self-imposed importances, all this will be lost, because a guy comes around and has a different, very very different approach.
Bit of radical.
Yes, but and for me that was more. I would look at it more on the human side of it.
Which comes to my next question. I already touched upon that. I want to pick your brains and just tell me how you felt in front of 30,000, your 40th birthday. This union president talks about being a brother and all that, and he references your name at the end, which is the usual other way around. That's itself. That moment, and plus the 6 minute video which I watched on when you left visited all your factories. I mean, saying that you have transformed them is an understatement. It's how the emotional values that were created and the engagement. Dan, how did you feel at that time? What did you feel? What were your feelings? Honestly?
Actually, it was a shocker to me when he said that. There are two things that I learned from that. One was, in a Sri Lankan context, there are social differences, where I come from and where a worker comes from. And for them to think that I am their elder brother, that I have transcended the social barrier of class, the elite and the worker, saying that I am your elder brother. That's a very powerful word, which I understood subsequently, not at that moment. The second thing is, I've realized there are most two important things which I always wanted to live up to. One is, if they compare you to be your elder brother, because I was much younger, I've realized that I had to take a responsibility for them, for those 100,000 people and the people who work for me all over the world, that there was a responsibility put on you by comparing you to be the older brother or your father. There's a responsibility for their safety, for their harassment, and all that. And I had zero tolerances for any of these things at that time. The second thing is defender of their rights. No unionist, in my era has told their chief executive that he is the defender of their rights.
Absolutely.
And putting me into a very awkward situation. One is the shareholders thinks, is this guy the radical communist who wants to start a revolution? And so was the industry. And I don't think the industry liked me as well, because I was on first name basis. Everybody used to call me Dion. And I used to call a lot of people Machang,
That is defying all the traditions.
and that was upsetting a lot of my, colleagues and especially the industry, because the industry was very family-driven companies, very large family-driven companies. They were not used to it. They were comes from very different elite backgrounds. So all these kind of things. But nobody could ever take the glory that when people used to ask me this question, Dan, are you running, are you making bras and panties for Victoria's Secrets, or are you running, a national, pool of athletes? But I used to say, look, let's compare our numbers, let's compare our bottom lines. And I was way ahead than most of I would say, 99% of the public companies, with their great glory and profit. So nobody could prove me that I was wrong. But they would always want to find a theory for it, whether these would relate to profit or these would relate to the bottom line. I knew it would. And there were times that I was told to justify it as well, because there were foreign shareholders and foreign directors as well. I stood up to my ground and defended it, knowing that it was always right. It created a lot of things. I would say, One of the reasons that we didn't have a single industrial dispute
years
was that 30 years in a country like ours was we had dug the forward defense line so well.
Right.
I was part of them. I would lead the troops and I could have athletes who are, brings the whole organization unified together as Sri Lankans. So there were a lot of behavioral aspects which I couldn't put into a model or to prove.
Right.
So
I think it's the foundation that brought you that elements, all what you said earlier. That's
but it worked. I mean, even today, right? I'm sure the what I've created, the legacy in any of the places, still works. And these organizations and the successions that I did is working very well.
Right. Excellent. This is a bit of a strategic question. A lot of organizations spend a lot of money, and I would thought you are the best person to ask because you have walked the talk. A lot of organizations spend a lot of money on overseas high-end executive development programs, executive education, and no doubt these are very current, very emerging, and very relevant, and top of the range. And their philosophies are amazing. But the knowledge itself is another thing to bring that knowledge here and to customize to Sri Lankan context.
Yes.
A lot of people, I find that I have in my career as well. At the decision maker level, a lot of people go abroad, they get exposed to this amazing content, INSEAD, Harvard, Wharton, all that, Stanford, and they come down. It limits to just a presentation to the senior managers, okay, these are the learnings I did. It was not cascade down to lower levels. Or maybe it ends up as just a footnote in the attendee's resume that I visited that and I have a certificate to show. But you have used all that knowledge and actually translated that to tangible results, and I've gone into progressive mindset, if not leapfrog effort. So what is stopping today's Sri Lankan leadership to make that knowledge relevant to Sri Lankan business models?
You exactly, said the right thing. People go to Harvard or INSEAD, they acquire the knowledge, but that knowledge is not passed down very well. But there are exceptions to the rule as well. I could give one exception. There was the young guy, Nalinda Jayasekara, who is now the finance director of MAS Intimates, running a $1 billion company. Nalinda was sent to Harvard because I never got board approval or anything, which was supposed to be the kind of tradition and the conformity. Nalinda was a very, very young guy at that time. I sent him to Harvard for training, and I was quizzed by the board, by the chairman, why I sent Nalinda without mentioning it to the board or when there were other senior people. I said, Nalinda was a lawyer, Nalinda was a chartered accountant, Nalinda was a SEMA graduate. Nalinda was one of the most brightest finance individuals I came across in my career. And I said, I sent him because I always believed that Nalinda was one of those people, individuals, wherever you sent him for training, he came back and imparted his knowledge to his fellow men, especially to his finance people. He used to run the same simulations. He was one of those exceptions. And Mahesh Amalin at that time tapped me on my shoulder and said, I think you did the right thing. And there were individuals like that. So was the current group chief executive, Suren Fernando, who went to Harvard, who went to some of the best schools, who came and taught the people. There are individuals like that, people who took on the same kind of philosophy that I had because, my parents could have afforded me to send to Harvard, when I was much younger. So I got all my training from all these institutions through the corporates. And you need to understand, you need to teach, and not to keep it like a guru mushtiya in the Sinhalese terms, which will make the organization much more better.
Yeah.
And the most difficult thing for an individual who follows all these fancy courses or the MBAs in the West is to translate into a Sri Lankan background, which I always say, which is the most difficult thing that one as a leader has to do, to translate that knowledge into a local, say for example, what I taught as Harvard, to a Pandala background or Pandala environment.
The culture, structures, the values.
Everything was
Is
different.
Excellent, excellent answer. Just want to pick your brains. I think you touched certain elements of that. Your stint at Mass Holdings, I think you have developed the business to almost, I would say, 34 factories in 11 countries. And you are being in the 80s and the 90s. And during that period, your leadership expectations and the KPIs also would have changed. Probably one is IT, and then you have to, inbuild the sustainable models, embrace science in your business models. Then, words such as discrimination and equality, and then, ethical manufacturing, all these shops and all that, you have to be very careful. What do you think someone who has been in the 80s, 90s, managing people, providing leadership to organization, as opposed to now, what do you think, Stein, are the new competencies that is expected of what you see of today's leaders that you need to, with today's so much diverse labor force as well?
I mean, I would look at the era. Mahesh Amalian was, I would say, one of the most innovative visionary in the apparel industry. Mahesh thought of this industry in the 80s, but even he has been able to sustain that even in by 2022.
Yes.
One of our successors was the great team building exercises that we did, and train the leadership, formally and informally over a longer period of time. The young chaps who joined me at that time, Suren Fernandos, Rajiv Dharmendras, Nalinda, and all that crew are running the organization. So they are very well battle trained. They are professionally qualified as well. Now the changes that they need from the time that I ran the organization to today, I didn't have to face a COVID,
right.
Which was something totally unexpected. Yeah. But they have the mobility or the agility to grasp situations because they are very well trained, and they have a strong structured teams as well. So from era to era, the competencies remain the same.
Right.
The competencies of the vision, the competencies of creating challenge in the process, competencies of the human heart, the emotional intelligence, they never change.
Okay.
But how you adapt to new situations, a COVID, I dread if I was at MAS Holdings or Hella Clothing today, in a COVID, where I would have had to go to the front line.
Right.
In the peak of the COVID, I would have had no chance but to go to the front line because I was built like that. And I would have most probably wouldn't be living today if I took those kind of high risks. So times change, the competencies will get tweaked, technology will be driven more, and it is your individual leadership style and the agility and a great team will sustain whatever situations. In another 10 years' time, the competencies might change. But the basic human skills will always remain intact. You need to understand, people will always think, whatever, situations, what is the individual benefit that they would get. Today, I've seen when you look at the younger generation, people coming from the best universities, they don't want to work for corporates. They want shareholdings, they want ownership, they want more freedom, they want flexi hours, they want to work from home. Now all these things were irrelevant in the time I was leading the company, because it was a stable job, a good salary, a great bonus, and people are having fun. But today,
not from home.
Today, people want more freedom, and a different environment, than what was needed at the time. So leadership, everything gets tweaked, changed.
Right. Okay, excellent. This is something to do with your purpose in life as of now, what drives you right now. I think since the time of Leslie Handunge went up to the ring in the 1952 Helsinki Games, Olympics, and I think at the flyweight category he beat with Mexican Tello. First Sri Lankan to beat is in the preliminary rounds as well, but first Sri Lanka to beat someone in the Olympic Games. And since then the seeds were planted and you took that mantle, and it's an understatement to say that you have given it all, because you have actually put boxing back on the map, world map. And through your journey, your contributions from having been, getting after 40 years, getting Aniruddha Ratnayaka to represent an Olympic game, it's not easy. It's just the best of the 28 that get represented in that field, in that category. 3 Asian Games, 3 Commonwealth Games, 3 World Championship, 1 Olympic, and also then you managed to achieve those 3 bronze medals at Brisbane 2018. Anusha, Tivanka, and Vidyalage. I mean, what your contribution is amazing. My question is that all the effort need to be sustained. How can we ensure that what you created, the forward momentum, is sustained, and we will go towards our elusive goal of winning that first boxing gold medal? Is it a distant dream still, or is it possible, or what sort of infusion? There is leadership related also. So what do you think needs to happen? Need to continue. So.
The dream is still on. I would see in my lifetime whether we could get this medal through, and even the gold medal at the Commonwealth Games. The succession, when I left boxing in 2010, 2009, after the Olympics, I created a succession path, but unfortunately the succession path didn't work out very well. The politics started coming in, so the Boxing Association needed me back. So I've taken 2 terms, and another 2 years I need to go on. It's a very difficult situation now. One is the funding. Without big bucks, this dream won't happen. So we need corporate sponsorships now. Although the government has supported now, saying that they are going to fund it, at this present crisis situation, it looks a little bit difficult.
We don't get funds from WBC and IBF?
No, nothing from the Olympic Committee, nothing from IBA. So people sometimes lose their heart, and lose their priorities. A lot of people look at all these sports, whether it's boxing or anything, as to travel, or for their individual glory, for their promotions, and trips.
Yeah.
The purpose is completely lost in sports. The will to win and to make them Sri Lankan. Say for example, Cuba, which is
Constantly producing boxing.
Constantly, and they got the highest number of boxing medals in the world for the last 10, 15 Olympic Games. Yes.
Wow.
And a smaller country than us, and with lesser resources. But there's a national pride of everybody, the officials, the country, and the people who are involved in sports, that we are Sri Lankan and we need to win. We need to win at Asian Games, we need to win at Commonwealth Games, we need to win at the Olympic Games. That thing is not there in us, and that is the sad part. We have to start from the schools, that we are willing to win. They are looking at all the other things to hold positions. The people who hold positions are there for years and years without any results. They are only, subjected to some paper articles, and every 4 years they say, we are going to win a medal, we are going to do this. And then they turn back and tell the federations, the federations didn't win the medal. It's a blame game. So I think we have to start from scratch, from leadership. I've always tried to get this succession plan all the time right, and I hope I've still got great people in the organization, the selection committee headed by the former Army Commander General Jagat Jayasuriya, a boxer himself, then Trinity Lion Udeni Kiridena, and and Colonel Hemanta Veera Singh. Some of these guys are still around. I hope that they would take the mantle of leadership after my succession. Otherwise, I'll have some worries, because the caliber of people getting into sports is not the caliber of people that that I had to deal with. The Eddie Grays of the world, the Danton Obesekras of the world, Leslie Handunges of the world. That kind of commodity or people are not around. And a different breed of people who's interested in
Entertainment.
other things than boxing. So obviously I'm not the most popular guy as well. And because I had to run an organization like a CEO to deliver results, not to this wishy-washy stuff and to do things. So it's difficult. But the dream is on. Dream is always on.
This comes to my last question. I think I asked Dion before the program that when it comes to the 4 C's, 4 C's being first C, consciousness, that's about how you are wired, your ethics, your values, what drives your integrity. Then about the culture, which is very important. You might have all your integrity, but culture needs to have a great culture, the performance-driven growth mindset. Then also about connecting with how to connect with people, not just communication. Very important that you connect with people. And of course, then the traditional competencies of leadership, which is negotiation, planning, organizing, creativity, all that. So I asked Dan what is his pick in terms of what is most important to driving a sustainable, performance-driven organization. So what do you think?
I think it's a culture of the organization. You can have a great leader, but if you don't have the right culture, it's very difficult. And we have seen it in even political leadership to corporate leadership. Once in our lifetime, you start getting great leaders, great visionaries, but they can't execute it. Why can't they execute it? People ask. Because they have a fantastic record of execution earlier. And suddenly you change reverse roles and put them in the mantle of leadership, and they can't deliver because the culture is wrong. Because culture is, he has no control of the culture. So obviously, it's like putting the cart before the horse. If you don't get the culture right, whoever takes on the leadership will fail. Whether it's boxing, I can lead, but if my culture is not right, I can't lead, because they are distracted. They are looking at their self-interest. They are looking at their personal glory. So the culture for the start is wrong. So that starts with sports, and it goes on to different areas in the private private sector or in the public sector, which I serve now. If the culture is not right, and if you don't create the tools to create that structure, no leader is going to get us out of this. Whether in sports or whether in country leadership, it's very difficult.
Dan, it has been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take your time to come on board. Well, we learned quite a lot today in terms of transformation, selflessness, recruiting the best people, integrity, and able to connect with people. I think I don't want to just define these as leadership traits. These are more or less, it's like rituals, habits, or practices. So if you can integrate some of these elements into your leadership journey, I'm sure you can establish your own unique leadership brand. So till we meet again with another edition of Leadership Perspectives, thank you for watching. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Thank you.